times it it involves me being me, feeling myself.
Yes.
So in order, if I want to speak about music, because I love music, I have to be me in order to do that. And most of the times, I'm not in my emotions.
Yep.
So it's really hard to process all that fear.
Yep. But can you see one of the things you do quite regularly, Nico, is that you go, but it's really hard to do that,
Yeah,
so I'm not going to do it.
yeah,
And what that does is it puts your life under constraint. It puts a prison around your life.
yeah.
And this is the problem that we have. The majority of us have that we put a prison around our life. We control our life. We put like literally walls around our life because we feel it's too hard to challenge our fears and addictions. And I put to you that if you do not challenge your fears and addictions now, while you're alive on earth, firstly, you will never have a fulfilling life on earth. Secondly, you will arrive in the spirit world with all of those fears and addictions. And thirdly, you're not going to enjoy the spirit world until you deal with them either. So my suggestion is to, if you notice yourself having resistance to dealing with a fear that you have about some of your passions, then deal with them as rapidly as you possibly can. Because if you don't, you are going to find this problem go on for a lot of your life, if not the rest of your life. And it will not only go on the rest of your life on earth, but it will also, you will take it with you into the spirit world when you pass, and you will continue to have the same fears when you pass. And that's a waste of your time. One of the worst things that you can ever do to your life is waste your own time. Does that make sense? Time is the only resource that you cannot get back. You can get back every other resource that you can think of. Time, you cannot get back. Most people who have regrets in the spirit world have regrets because they didn't, when they had the opportunity and the time to do it come up in their life, they didn't take the opportunity and the time. That's where that is the source of almost all regret. So rather than having a life where you finish up regretting your choice, you're far better off instantly seeing, there's my fear, now I need to address this fear. Now I need to do something to confront this fear. And it needs to be a personal decision, not something somebody else forces you into doing, but something that comes from within you because you want to change your life and you want to fully embrace yourself. Now, I agree with you that many of us have difficulty fully embracing ourselves because our parents in particular, when we were growing up, didn't allow us to fully embrace ourselves. Every time our true personality came out, it got squashed, ridiculed, humiliated, belted. All sorts of things happened to our true personality when we were small. And we need to now take control of our life and work through those issues so that those childhood experiences no longer control our desires. If you do not discover your desires now, you will live a completely unfulfilled life. And when you pass, you still will be unfulfilled. And you may even live a long unfulfilled life in the spirit world until you begin discovering some of those desires. I've spoken to some spirits who've been in the spirit world 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years, and they've only just started discovering some of their desires. One spirit I spoke to, he was in the hells, and then a few months later he was in the third sphere of the spirit world after our discussion. And for the very first time in his entire existence, he painted. He'd never painted his entire life. Right? And for the very first time he started painting, and he was just enjoying the process. And he said to us that he didn't spend much time with people because he was so much enjoying this newfound pleasure that he had that he didn't spend much time talking to people anymore because he just enjoyed the painting so much. And before, he was spending this time with lots of people, and he was in a terribly sad condition, and he had no joy in his life at all, and he wasn't painting. Many of you know of Elvis, yes? So Elvis, the singer Elvis. And when I spoke to Elvis, he was in the second dimension of the spirit world. This was some time ago when I first spoke to him. It was nearly 6 years ago. And since he passed over, he had never sung again till that time. He felt so bad about singing and so bad inside of himself that he hadn't sung again. So much of his singing while he was on earth was based on addictions, right? There was some pleasure. Initially, it began with initial desire and pleasure, but afterwards, addictions kicked in, and then drugs kicked in, and all sorts of things kicked in, and he had terrible feelings about all of that. Once he addressed some of the fears that he had about that, he started singing again, and now he is a celestial spirit who sings on regular occasions to audiences of hundreds of thousands of people. Yeah? Now, and without addiction, no addictions at all. So even the things that we think are our desires here on earth, if we don't purify them, when we pass, we'll be very unhappy with ourselves and often very unhappy with what we were doing as a result. So we need to go through this process of not only discovering our desires, but also purifying them, bringing them into harmony with love. And when you do that, Nico, you will not worry about being yourself. In fact, one of the beauties of all of your desires is they are a way of expressing yourself. So at home, myself and Mary, we love doing our garden, which is 40 acres, so it's a fairly big garden. And we love doing things on them. And there's things happening right now at home that we wished we were home at the moment to experience, because there's certain changes that are happening on our property right now that we would like to observe and watch them occurring. And it's a strong passion of mine. So if anybody comes around, even if they don't want to talk about spiritual things and they don't want to talk about God and they don't want to talk about all these other things that I generally talk about, the soul and all that, I'm very, very happy and passionate about talking about what we're doing to our property to improve it. Does that make sense? Because that is one of my passions. The beautification of the earth is one of my passions. So after a while, you'll find that you'll have like maybe hundreds of passions. And there will be a priority system with these passions. So some passions you'll find, as soon as you get the opportunity to do it, you'll definitely go and do that, and you'll drop your others and you'll do that one. But then when that's finished, you'll go back to doing the others, and you'll always feel interested in your life. You'll always feel completely absorbed in what you're doing. When you are afraid, that does not happen. You think you're absorbed in your life, but the reality is we're just absorbed in controlling our environment to suit our fear. And that's not a way to discover your passions at all. Many of you do know what your passions are, but you are not following them. When I say not following them, is you do it in your spare time, if you have any spare time. Yes? Now, when you follow your passions with passion, when you follow your desires with passion, you won't find yourself doing them in your spare time. You'll be having to have spare time to eat a meal and sleep and do other things like that. You'll be looking for spare time for those kind of things, but you won't be looking for spare time to do your passion, because you'll be in your passion almost, if not every day, almost every day. You'll be enjoying what you do every day. So you won't be trying to find time for your passions if you're really in your passions. And I suggest to you, if you're having to find time for your passions, it's because you're afraid as to the reason why they are not having a higher priority in your life. Does that make sense? So for example, let's say music production was my passion. However, I don't know how to do it. I don't play a musical instrument. I don't know anything about mixing. I don't know anything about the technology I need. Yep. I don't know anything about the technology I need. See you later.
Bye.
Yep. If I was passionate, I would discover all of those things.
Because it's willpower. I want.
Yes.
I get it. Because I want it so much that
Yes.
everything else is irrelevant.
Exactly.
It's second.
Exactly. So you don't think, oh, I don't have enough money. You
No.
don't think that.
That's not an issue.
It's irrelevant to you, all right? And yet in our current day-to-day life, how many times do we think we have a passion, and then the next question we say to ourselves is, or the next question we ask ourselves is, do I have the money to do that? Now, if we're in our passion, we don't ask ourselves such questions. We know the money will come along if we just engage our passion and address the emotions that cause the money to not come along. Then it will come along. So if you engage your passions with a passion, you'll find things will run very smoothly. Now, my younger son, Caleb, he's 26 years old. 26 years old? Yeah, he's 26 years old now. When he was about 17 or 18, he decided that he wanted to do music production. At the time, he was living by himself. He was working at Woolworths, which is like a supermarket in Australia. And he wanted to create a band. He had no musical instruments. He didn't know how to play anything. And on top of that, he had nothing to mix or record with at all. Nothing. And he didn't ask his dad for any funds. And I, at this stage, said to both of my boys that you can't have any more funds anyway. So even if he asked, he wouldn't have gotten those funds. And what he did was, just through his desire, he created a band. He finished up buying all of his musical instruments. He now plays 4 instruments. He also finished up buying mixers, sound equipment, speakers, and now he has a 7-piece band that does live gigs that are of what are called covers in local pubs in the city that he lives in. He also mixes music for movies. He produces his own music, plus at the same time he's doing a degree in music, and at the same time he still works 1 day a week at Woolworths.
Woolworths got him through the whole thing.
Woolworths got him through the whole thing. And now he is fully engaged in his passion every single day, every single moment of his day. He's either picking up an instrument, mixing something, doing something, producing a CD. He produces CDs or DVDs for musicians as well. And he's setting up his own studio. And he's done this all through his own desire. And things through that desire have come to him as a result. Now, he started with no money and no musical training and no ability in music production. None of those things were present. He loved music, just like many of you do, but aside from that, nothing. And his desire took him to these other places. Does that make sense?
Because there's a lot, one of the most beautiful things, I think, is a pure desire. It's one of the most powerful forces in the universe, I believe. When you have your desire in harmony with love, it's incredibly magnetic. It brings everything to it. And that's why there's so much benefit in purifying our desires. The more we do it, the more we challenge the fear, the more we confront the injury within it, the more it's going to serve us in not only our joy, but in supporting us in our life, in being creative, beneficial to other people who might engage with it. But it's really essential, isn't it, that we purify that desire.